What would it look like if a woman who could win a Betty White lookalike contest decided to start poisoning people? Can an adorable old lady murder people in cold blood? In today's episode, we'll be talking about Dorthea Puente and her murderous rampage. Find out how you too can kill guests in your home on today's episode of Well, That's Horrible. Well, that's horrible. Welcome back to this week's episode of Well, That's Horrible. I'm Reese Hawley, and with me is...
Travis.
That's right. We tell stories about horrible and not so horrible things to each other, and you get to listen in. Do you think our opinions need to be heard worldwide?
Absolutely.
Definitely. Then let's let the world know what we think.
You know, that's just like your opinion, man.
Unprofessional opinion. What was your least favorite food as a child? Do you still hate it or do you love it now?
I've always really hated apples. Like,
What? Who
hate
hates apples?
I hate apples.
I
I
knew
hate
you were
every
a
kind of
communist.
apple. Yeah, that's the deciding factor.
Yep.
You're like, he's pretty liberal.
Right.
But he doesn't like
that pushes
apples.
you over the edge.
That's secret
Thanks,
police are
Obama.
coming for me. Yeah, thanks, Obama. No, I've always hated apples. It is my least favorite food of all time, and I don't know what it is. Like, I've
Makes
tried
no sense to me.
Gala and Honey Crisp and other apples that have names. Those were my two.
Did you just list off all of the apples that you know?
Yeah, those are the two that my wife likes, so I
Okay.
have to get those from the store. So,
Does she force you to buy more just to torture you?
no, I mean, I don't care.
Do you like anything? Applesauce?
I don't like applesauce. No.
No apple pie?
No warm apple pie for me. No,
Not
sir.
for eating.
No, I mean, apple pie is, you like, put enough ice cream on it. I
Yeah.
think it's good.
Yeah.
It's mostly just cinnamon.
Have you ever
flavored ice
tried
cream.
apple pie with cheddar cheese?
I have not.
That is fantastic.
That's very Midwestern of you.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Well, think
my
about
lord.
it. Have you ever had apples and cheddar cheese?
Yeah, that was one of my dad's favorite snacks.
See?
So he would bring that out all the time, and he'd put them all in a bag together.
Okay.
And then we'd go fishing, and that was the only food for the whole day.
Put the cheese and the apples together?
Yeah,
You
just
get
in a
soggy
Ziploc bag.
cheese then.
And then you'd get the soggy cheese, and I hated apples, and I'd just eat the cheese, and then wouldn't eat the apples, and just
It's
go hungry and
terrible.
eat apple-flavored chease, and it was awful. So, hard pass.
See-
Still don't like apples. I mean, I don't like grapes either, but that's because when I was 12, I got $50 for eating a pig's eyeball. So, that was more
Those
like...
are the same thing.
They pop the same. So, and then they have that kind of juicy
Was
center.
it cooked?
Yeah, it was from a pig roast, So
Oh.
had been fully cooked.
Right.
I mean, it was pretty rare in the middle. Let's just say.
Yeah.
It definitely had a nice like pop when you bought into it. Like,
Can you cook the juice in an eyeball? Like, no matter how much you cook it, is it ever going to get
or is it
firm,
just
or is it going
constant jelly?
is it going to just be like a gusher, but animal form?
Ugh. I don't know. It was the inside with the like texture of like snot. Like, it was
Not
disgusting.
the first time you've had that texture explode in your mouth.
No.
Wouldn't be the last.
R.I.P. Uncle Pete.
See, my food that I hated as a kid was leftover top ramen. My mom saved all food. If there was leftover food, it was saved. And so if we had top ramen for a meal, she would save the rest of that top ramen and we would have it for leftovers.
Wouldn't that just be like top ramen porridge? Top ramen sludge?
Yeah, everything just forms into a sludge, and the best flavor comparison I have is olive flavored top ramen. and it was horrifying. I hated it. I hated it. Definitely don't eat leftover top ramen anymore.
I'll live without that. Brought the olive back. It took me a little bit to think of a pun.
You were just waiting for it.
I was waiting. Oh, I heard nothing of what you said. I was just waiting. I was like, oh, I can make a pun with olive.
See, that was mine. I did have to chuckle, though, because I was talking with one of my cousins recently, and he reminded me about...
Like cousins or kissing cousins?
Well, I mean, you can kiss your cousins, too. But I don't kiss this one. And he reminded me that he had come out to stay with us for a week. And my mom had made omelets. And then we had leftover omelets afterwards. And my cousin did not like mushrooms, but the rule was you had to... I think he only had to have one, technically. But he tried to muscle that sucker down and wound up losing everything, and I had to sprint over to the bathroom because it just wouldn't stay down.
That is legit what happens to me whenever I eat grapes. Like an apple, I'll just chew it up and be like, ugh, this is gross.
Right.
But grapes, instant, like, I want to puke.
Weird.
Like that really old egg that you made me eat. That was the same thing. That
For
one
those
of
of you that don't know,
eggs.
and I'll include a picture of this in our Instagram posts, but for my birthday, I got century eggs, which are aged duck eggs, and they get buried for several weeks to months. And then once you open them up, the white of the egg looks like jellied coffee. And the yolk is kind of a cheesy, nutty flavor and super sticky and mushy.
And it's really gray.
It's really gray. And
Obscenely and offensively gray.
there's something borderline. Yeah, it's just terrible.
It's like Toby of The Office gray. Like who he is as a person.
His personality as an egg. And they weren't bad. They tasted okay, but I do have a video, which I feel like maybe we need to post, of Travis eating that egg.
It got stuck on the yolk, like adhered to the roof of my mouth immediately. And then I was like, I had to like drag my tongue through the sludge on the roof of my mouth, and it's like the texture and consistency of peanut butter. So like you're like,
but not the flavor.
No, and then it's like a deep nutty fungal, like
I love my fungal. Nuts fungal.
I did not do well with that.
I have been thinking a lot about it, and I think we should probably tell a horrible story.
Oh, I'm so ready.
All aboard!
So, Dorthea Puente, born Dorthea Helen Gray, was born on January 9th, 1929 in Redlands, California. You can tell that she was born in a time when you needed backup children for all of the ones that would die because she was the sixth of 7 children. Her dad, who was super violent and constantly threatened suicide in front of the kids, died of tuberculosis when she was 8. I'm actually not sure why that was portrayed as a bad thing.
Right.
I don't know. I constantly threaten suicide in front of my kids, and they're fine. Do you want me to take this butter knife, open my veins to the world, and experience the sweet release that only death can bring? No? Then pick up the banana peel you've had on your bedroom floor for the last week. Her mom really stepped up to the proverbial parenting plate by becoming an alcoholic, abusing her kids nonstop, and then dying in a motorcycle accident. Honestly, her mom just sounds like a badass. Drinking heavily, dying in a motorcycle wreck, and punching people just makes for some major street cred. Dorthea bounces from foster home to foster home, deciding at 16 that it was time to head out on her own. She lands in Olympia, Washington. At this point, she figured she'd give prostitution a try.
Just the good old college try, or the community college try.
In this case. Try. Yeah. Well, no, she was 16, so high school. She gave it the old high school
the old
try.
High school prostitution try.
Please don't try this dating method at home, but she did wind up finding a husband this way.
Oh, I mean,
I'm not sure if he was one of her Johns or if she just stumbled across him, but either way, she does find a man. She met and married a man named Fred McFowle in 1945. She and Fred were only together for about 3 years, and they had a few kids. During that time, Dorthea sent one of her kids to live with relatives and placed another up for adoption. Fred asked for and got a divorce, and Dorthea moved down to California.
You'd think that if she had somebody who could take in her children, like where the fuck were they when the child was prostituting herself in Olympia, Washington, which is a fucking shithole? Like, who wants to go to Olympia?
She was not making the big bucks.
I have no idea about. I've never been to Olympia. I know nothing about it.
Let's assume it's terrible.
That's my entire assumption.
Just remember, anyone from Olympia, Washington, fuck you. We don't care about you, and you have the worst city ever.
I mean, it's
ever. Detroit has nothing on you. Olympia, Washington is just trash.
Twin Falls, Idaho. Fuck you, Twin Falls. You don't have. I mean, everybody. Lots of places have fucking Twin Falls, like two falls. Oh
look, we have like 2 waterfalls.
I've been to Great Falls, Montana. Those are mediocre falls at best.
Are we just gonna go through and insult random towns?
That's what I'm going for.
I think that's what the podcast needs to be from here on, is insulting towns.
Like, fuck you, Great Falls, and your
We'll move
waterfall
town to town to town, and eventually lose one listener at a time as we insult their town.
I mean, it sounds like a plan.
I mean, we already have like 12 listeners, so we just need to find out where they live
super fast. I mean, I bet one of them lives in Spokane. Actually. Well, one of them probably lives in Spokane, because fucking Spokane's a piece of shit.
Everyone lives in Spokane. So Dorthea decided that prostitution wasn't a great career choice. Shocker. She was probably concerned that she would end up married again. So the next logical career was cashing forged checks.
Is it a career?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You had weird career choices. Ma'am, in the amount section of this check you're trying to cash, it just says a shit ton of moolah. She gets caught and spends 4 months in prison. After getting out, Puente was supposed to stick around and serve out her probation. She was a model citizen while on probation, even volunteering to become the resident prostitute for the local police department. She was actually a tax write-off for the department under the heading, quote, pump therapy. I'm kidding. She immediately bounced out of town. She stayed in California and landed in San Francisco. Not sure if she started walking the street again, but she wound up marrying a second husband, Axel Bren Johansson, in 1952.
What a name.
Axel's just a badass name. It really is.
Like fucking Axel, and he is an accountant.
Right.
Name's Axel.
He folds napkins for a living. They argued constantly about Dorthea's drinking and gambling. She also got caught offering to perform a sex act on an undercover police officer. I personally am very popular with the local police department. I can lick toes like nobody's business.
Oh, you can get toe right between those front teeth. Just file away.
This tooth gap is as big as you can get without knocking some teeth out. Axel decided that this warranted sending her to a psychiatric ward. I'm guessing that she was an absolute kitten in the bedroom because they stayed married until 1966. So it was like 8 years that they were married. Several years after she went to a psychiatric ward for offering sex to an undercover police officer. My wife, Erica, is absolutely amazing, and I can't imagine life without her. But if she got caught offering, quote, services at a hooker house, I might have some questions.
I mean, how much was she getting? I mean, like, was it a good amount of money?
Like, my wife or
Puente? Either way, I mean, whatever you want. I'm just saying, like, what's the money amount where you're like, it's all right, babe, like, go sleep with that millionaire. Like, what's your money amount?
There isn't one.
There's-
I couldn't get past it. And as far as I know,
I'm
Erica
about
was not a
$1.50.
prostitute before we met. I mean, I have my usual room down at the motel, but that's just for legitimate business transactions where I perform filthy acts for money. I have just the nicest fishnet stockings, but my leg hair sticks through. I look like a sexy chia pet. Puente decided to change her appearance, lets her hair go gray, and wears giant old lady glasses. A couple years later, in 1968, Puente marries a guy named Roberto Puente. You might recognize that name. They only stayed together for about 16 months, but apparently that was long enough for her to keep that last name. The nice thing about being married to so many people is that you get your pick of the litter as far as names go. She then marries Pedro Angel Montalvo. Yep, we're going with that, Montalvo. But that marriage only lasted about a week.
She's just a serial goddamn
Marrier?
Yeah. Monogamer?
I don't think it can really count as monogamy if you've just jumped from husband to husband to husband.
Right. I think that's kind of the opposite of monogamy.
I think so. At this point, Dorthea figured that between the drinking, gambling, and hooking, she would make an amazing caretaker. So she started a daycare. The children were given a shot glass of Jack Daniels at the beginning of every day to level them out. Truthfully, though, she opened up her first boarding house. In the 1970s, social workers actually thought she was this pillar of the community for opening the boarding house. Puente had built a reputation for taking in recovering alcoholics, drug addicts, the mentally ill, and the elderly. But don't worry, she hadn't turned over a new leaf or anything. It comes to light that she'd been signing her tenants' benefit checks and cashing them. She'd also started drugging her tenants so she could more easily pilfer their personal belongings. In 1982, she loses her boarding house and gets sent back to prison for theft. A state psychologist diagnosed her with schizophrenia and said she had no, quote, remorse or regret, unquote, and should be, quote, closely monitored, unquote. The moment she's released, Puente opens up her second boarding house. The home is the landing place for a lot of what are known as shadow people. So these are people on the edges of society that really no one is aware of where they are or what they're up to.
I think Neil Gaiman wrote a book about that.
I think so. What got her in trouble the time before was ungrateful little shits telling the police about her antics. Because of this, some of her tenants began to disappear. For pretty obvious reasons, her probation officer said she wasn't allowed to have a boarding house. It's just a killjoy.
Yeah, obviously. Like, duh.
Doesn't he want her making a living? But she still had to come up with an excuse for why all these people were in her house. She's actually able to convince the officer that the hordes of people staying with her weren't tenants, but were in fact guests and friends. Puente must have offered him a gentle under-the-desk handy because he was like, you run a boarding house, you poisoned people and robbed them, but now all these people are just friends? That makes sense.
I mean, who wouldn't want to be your friend? Really, like, that's who I'm reaching out to. I'm like, hey, bestie. Hey.
In 1982, a 61-year-old woman by the name of Ruth Monroe moved into Puente's house. I had a weird sound with that Puente.
Puente.
Just adding a little zhuzh to it.
Oh, a little Puente.
A few days in, she dies from overdosing on codeine and acetaminophen. This is Ruth, not Puente.
Ruth.
I think I've been trying to poison myself with ibuprofen since I turned 30. It's become just a staple of my diet.
Old man joke.
The cops show up, and since Puente looks at least somewhat Caucasian, they accept that it was suicide. To make the story even less believable, Puente told Ruth's family that Ruth had given all her belongings to her except her purse. Stop crying, you guys. She left you her purse. She told me specifically that she was disappointed in you. Stop crying. And that all you're worth is this purse.
God.
In 1985, Dorthea hires a handyman named Ismael Flores to install wood paneling in her house. Because it's the 1980s.
Does he have a obsession with whales?
No.
Ishmael?
Call me Ishmael. That took me a sec. That was a deep cut.
Yeah.
You guys didn't know we were getting literary references, did you?
We're all service. We got 2 book references. I mean, that's the amount of books I've read, but...
That you were forced to for high school?
Yeah.
Once he was done with the job, she asks him to make a wooden box for her. She wants it to be 6 feet long and 2 feet wide.
That's not suspicious.
Do you know what a 6 foot long, 2 feet wide wooden box is usually used for?
Nails.
Yes. But what else?
Bodies?
No, you idiot. Dude, your suspicion knows no bounds. All she wanted it for was to store books and other items, and she needed some help bringing it to her storage facility.
Obviously.
God, you are cynical as hell.
I'm just...
They're on their way to the storage facility, and Puente suddenly asks Flores to pull over to the side of the road and dump the box into the river. She must have paid him well because he asks no questions and pushes the box into the river. A couple of weeks later, a fisherman sees the obvious casket in the riverbank and calls the police. The cops find an old man still alive.
Still
He'd
alive?
somehow managed to survive on nothing but Werther's Originals and denture paste. Actually, he was very much dead.
Oh, shit.
All they
I
found
was like,
was
man, a week?
all they found was his corpse. You'd think that the jig would be up at this point, but it actually took 3 years before they figured out that he was one of Puente's
3 years?
tenants. Yeah, 3
Just crack
years.
squad on this.
Yeah. During this time, Puente continues to take in people on the fringes of society. When their mail would come in, she graciously read through all of it to see if there was money or social security checks, which she would immediately cash. She would give each person a little of their money, but kept the rest for her, quote, expenses. Her neighbors start to question her, though, when she adopts an alcoholic man named Chief to do repair work around the house. He digs a huge hole in her basement, I assume that wasn't a euphemism, and removes a ton of soil and garbage from the property. He then lays a cement slab in her basement and promptly disappears. By
The most racially sensitive nickname.
Chief.
They fucking had to
It was the
dig
80s.
deep. They're like, whoa.
They're French?
I don't know. Maybe
Oh,
every accent I
croissant,
do sounds the
chief.
same. I don't know.
By 1988, people start to get even more suspicious of Puente. One of her tenants, a 52-year-old man named Alvaro Montoya, went missing. Most of the people who stayed with Puente slipped under the social radar, but not Montoya. There was an outreach counselor with Volunteers of America named Judy Moyse, who got suspicious when Montoya disappeared. When asked where Montoya had gone, Puente tried convincing Judy that he had left for vacation. I'm not sure what type of a vacation a homeless person is supposed to go on, but
Right.
there you go.
He's already away from home.
Oh, he's at his other villa. Oh, that's where he
He's
went.
always away from home. That's why he's homeless.
Unhomed.
unhomed.
Travis. This is a
Unhomed.
sensitive podcast.
Unhomed.
Judy doesn't buy it and sends the police over to check into it. They show up, and Puente rolls up to her front door in her giant old lady glasses, holding a box of kittens that she was bottle feeding. I know that sounds made up, but that really happened.
Jesus.
She greeted the police with a box of kittens she was bottle feeding. They get the same story that Montoya was just on vacation. She even gets backed up by John Sharp, one of her other tenants. But right before the police leave, Sharp slips them a note that says, quote, "She's making me lie for her." The cops come back later and search the house, but they aren't able to find anything, so they ask to dig up the yard. Puente says that's completely fine and even goes so far as to offer them an extra shovel. While they're digging, she asks if it would be okay for her to run and grab a coffee. Isn't that how most people react when cops are digging up their backyard? I always want to make coffee runs when I'm under
I mean, yeah,
investigation.
absolutely.
There must not have been any good coffee in Sacramento because the next place Puente pops up is Los Angeles. The cops find 7 bodies in the backyard. If
Jesus.
if there's anything that history has taught us, it's that LA cops are absolutely top-notch. And Dorthea isn't even a suspect at first.
With the 7 one.
7 bodies in the backyard. And their assumption is, nope, it can't be the adorable white-looking lady. Puente manages to remain a free woman for the next 5 days. A man in a bar recognizes her from the news, and the police nab her. The press mobs her, and she's quoted as saying, quote, "I used to be a very good person at one time," unquote. I'm not
That
sure.
time was the day she was born and not since.
That's what I was wondering. I'm not sure when she was supposed to have been a very good person. Back when I was 5, I wanted this puppy's pretty collar, so I smacked him in the head with a 2x4 and took it. I could have strangled him slowly, but I went with the humane method. It was determined that every single body in the backyard had Dalmane in their system, which was a drug for insomnia. It was assumed that she had drugged them, smothered them with pillows, and then paid convicts to help her bury the bodies in the yard. The trial goes on for a long time, and by 1993, the jury comes to a decision. They'd been deadlocked for a while, mostly because Puente had such a grandmotherly appearance that they couldn't fathom that she'd be willing to kill that many people. Dorthea is convicted of 3 of the murders and is sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences.
Was that like 4 years? Like
4 years?
She's so fucking old.
Oh, yeah.
She's going to die soon.
Oh, she makes it for a while. For the rest of her life, she maintained that she was innocent. She eventually died of natural causes in 2011 at the age of 82.
Goddamn. No, this Puente, I think, is kind of a punta. Puente. I thought of that at the beginning and couldn't think of a way to slip it in.
I don't like you thinking of ways to slip it in when you're around
I'm
me.
always thinking of ways to slip it in.
So, have you ever dealt with someone who didn't match their appearance at all?
You know, I feel like I'm really bad at judging people based off their appearance.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that happens to me all the time.
Okay.
But then again, like, there's definitely, you can tell by most people, like, you're like,
Yeah.
this guy's fucked up.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, no, I mean, just Gary Busey. I mean, I heard he's a great guy.
Well, I mean, he was on my zombie team from
Right.
last week, so that makes
I
sense.
think about Gary Busey a lot.
Who doesn't think about Gary Busey a lot?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I have no idea. Like, somebody who doesn't match their appearance at all.
See, for me, it was actually one of my neighbors. So when we first moved in, I'm not going to drop any names here or tell you what neighborhood I'm in, but when we first moved in, we were moving the kids' playhouse, and this was like a 2-story giant wooden playhouse. So I had 2 friends over that were helping move it. One of them is like 6'4", huge dude, and he was helping move it. And then the other one was a guy that did MMA for years and years, very successfully. So these are big, tough dudes. And we're standing there, and my neighbor comes over to greet us, and this guy looks like he stepped off of a Slayer album cover. He has the black shirt with the ripped off sleeves. He has the baggy black pants with the zippers and everything all over it, and the combat boots. He has long hair, and he has a cigarette jauntily poking out of his mouth on one side. Jauntily. And he's one of those people that uses F-bombs as spaces in his sentences. So he comes over and he goes, "Fucking A, man, fucking welcome to the fucking neighborhood." And instantly, both of my friends disappear. They were like, "Nope, you're on your own with this guy." And they're gone. And
Just abandoned you.
they abandoned me. And so I'm talking with this neighbor, and he's talking all about the neighborhood, and turns out he had been in the Air Force. He is an air traffic controller, and he was one of the only neighbors that came over and greeted us. He even invited me to be part of his motorcycle club, which I don't know what about this appearance indicated to him that I would be part of a
They
motorcycle
need to
club.
diversify and get a metrosexual guy.
We want one of them gays. We found one. We found one.
We want a gay light.
Gay light.
You're the Bud Light of gays.
We just want a guy that hasn't come to grips with his sexuality yet.
I mean, my neighbor. I have a neighbor, Dave, and he is like this old retired.
Remember that time that I was like, I'm not going to mention names?
Well,
Although I suppose it's Dave.
Yeah,
My neighbor's name was
Dave's
super
not here,
unique.
man.
Okay, so anyway, Dave.
I mean, his real name is Jeff. So
Really?
no.
Okay.
No, I have this old neighbor. He's like this old like biker guy, and he's just like the super chill old guy. But he looks gruff from the outside. You'd think he's gonna yell at you, and then he actually let me. He builds go karts and shit just for fun.
Huh.
And there's no limiter on it, so he let me drive his go kart.
Nice.
And it's just this little red thing with like roll bars, and I am much bigger of a person than he is. Like he barely fits.
Right.
And I'm like knees out, like I'm goddamn fucking riding a tricycle and steering like this, and there's no limiter. So it's just like got it up to like 30.
That's awesome.
But yeah, he just does shit like that for fun. He just wanted a go-kart to put around in, and
nice.
He
Sometimes
did
the roughest looking people are the best.
Yeah.
You know, I think we need to balance out this murderous Betty White story with a happy story. What do you think?
I say let's do it.
Okay.
Good news, everyone!
Well, that's not so horrible. Time for happy stories.
I was waiting. I was waiting for the song. That's also who I think of every time I hear of a mass shooting. Betty White.
Why?
Because mass shooting, Betty White.
No more jokes. You're not allowed to tell jokes anymore.
Move on from that.
Speaking of mass shootings, how about some good news?
How about some good news? You know how there's so much plastic all around us, microplastics. They found microplastics in Antarctica.
You mean like this water bottle on the
water
table?
bottles, like these plastics, they don't really break down, right?
Right.
And then that's how you get microplastics.
Yeah.
And it's like all over the place.
Yeah.
And they haven't really found a way to combat it.
Right.
They have with waxworm saliva. How and how they figured it out is just bizarre too.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
So waxworms, which are like little maggot-like things, and
Making me hungry.
there was this scientist who had a bunch of bee boxes, and he had a really bad year where there's just a bunch of, and this is true, bunch of bad waxworm infestation. So he was just grabbing waxworms and throwing them in plastic bags.
Okay.
And then he realized after a while that the bags were disintegrating. Like not just like being eaten or
Right.
anything. It was just like actually disintegrating. So
Okay.
he takes these waxworms, checks everything out. I just don't know if it was actually a guy. The Bertuscini, it was the scientist's name. Should throw in some credit in there. I just got one last name. That's how solid of a research I do. But yeah, you notice that there's a bunch of holes, and the waxworm saliva actually breaks down the plastics
That's
on a
wild.
molecular level. And they've even done a bunch of testing, and they found a way to reproduce it using plant and leaf compost. So, I mean, it'll break it down 90% in 10 hours,
Really?
which is like
That's
super
insane.
high.
Yeah, see, when you first said this, my first thought was this intentionally discovered? Because the way my brain works, all I could think of was scientists trying to make various insects drool, holding
Right.
different pieces of food in front of them just so they salivate, so they could collect the saliva, and eventually landing on the waxworms. But apparently it works. That's awesome.
Yeah, waxworm saliva.
Who knew?
Who knew?
So
That
how are
was the
they?
solution.
How are they rolling these things out? Are they just dumping them in landfills? What are they doing?
I mean, honestly, that's what they're thinking of. Like, that was one of the things that they're talking about. But then again, if they have them produced everywhere,
Right.
then there's also the risk of, like, the carbon monoxide that they put out, or
Right.
dioxide. I don't know which one. They put out some bad
Plastic farts?
Plastic farts, yeah. So the worms fart a lot, and then they're like, "Oh no, that's just as bad as cows." And yeah, and apparently it has not the greatest, but I mean, if they can do it using leaf compost,
Right.
which is super scientific sounding,
Yeah.
like
We squeeze the juice out of the plants and put it on plastic.
right, yeah. But they're able 90% in 10
Wow.
hours, which is like, yeah, I mean, great. It's finally nice that we have some sort of hint on which way to go.
Yep.
So
Nice.
pretty dope.
That's awesome. Well, folks, that wraps up this week's installment of Well, That's Horrible. Please like, subscribe, and rate on whatever platform you use. We are on Spotify, iTunes, Pandora, Google Podcasts, and any other platform you might use. You can also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. The more you rate and review us, the higher we can climb in the rankings, and we'll be able to keep coming out with new content for you. Remember to not become an adorable old lady who murders people, and also remember to make the world a little less horrible.
Well, that's horrible.